A very warm and sunny welcome once again to Settle Crown Court here. I know I'm a few minutes early instead of 9:50, but court starts here at 10:15. And as I'm just walking here, I can see one juror is already on the line, queuing to go in. A second juror is just around the corner near me here. So let me get this off my chest and get inside the building. So yesterday was day number 7 of the jury being out. As just to remind us, jury was sent out last week Monday the 18th. They went through the whole of last week. On Wednesday of last week, exactly a week ago, we didn't know one juror was discharged, juror number 10, yesterday when they came in. So on Thursday, just to recap for you, on Thursday, there was that jury note on count number 1, which didn't give us any clue as to where the jury is with their deliberations. And there was nothing. And then on Friday, there was nothing as well. We had a long sitting on Friday until 3, just after 3 p.m. Monday was bank holiday. I told you yesterday, before the jurors left the court on Friday, the judge, gave them that teaser of a joke to say Monday is bank holiday. You don't come to court on Monday. So everybody resumed yesterday. But guess what? As I've mentioned many times that, life happens. Twist. There was another twist yesterday. It took a couple of minutes for the jurors to be called in instead of 10:15. When eventually they were called in, there were 10 of them instead of 11. Remember, from 12, one being discharged, so there were 11. 11 had been sitting from Thursday. But yesterday, the morning after the bank holiday, and as you can see me in some places, it's been baking hot, not just here in London, but across Western Europe. If you watch the weather forecast, it's been over 30 degrees. But for some reason, on yesterday, as soon as the jurors came in, the judge told them, one of you is not well. You will have seen, of course, that they will have seen that when instead of 11, they were 10 in number. So the judge told them, one of you is not well. So we won't be doing any work today. Very, very agonizing. It's not the first time. It's an archaic law that guides the jury judgment, the jury method of assessing cases. That's one of the reasons probably for the legal reform that the Deputy Prime Minister, David Lamia, put forward. When one juror is absent, the jury cannot sit. Can you imagine that? Out of 11 jurors, one juror was unwell. They couldn't sit. So the judge had to discharge them. They spent less than 10 minutes in court. He says, sorry, we cannot do anything today because one of you is not well. So that was it. She sent them away. And then just before they left the court, of course, she reminded them, don't forget the rules. Don't forget the rules. As I've mentioned many times, this jury trial, this marathon trial is like a boxing match, and the referee always says to the boxers, obey my instructions at all times. Obey my instructions at all times. So the judge, Mrs. Justice Christine Thornton, reminded them yesterday, don't forget the rules. You mustn't talk to yourselves as soon as you leave the court. You mustn't talk to anybody. Do not research this case. And she told them, see you tomorrow, which is today, at 10:15. So hopefully that juror who was not well yesterday will have been well today for the proceedings to continue. Again, nobody knows where exactly they are in their deliberation, and the judge didn't want no pressure. Nobody asked any questions where they are. She had told them several times, take as much time as you want. You are not under any pressure of deadline. But the annoying thing there is that the jury way of doing trial, it is like a clog in the wheel of justice. Imagine yesterday, just because one juror was absent, 10 others could not sit. The judge had to send them on. That's how the jury law works. If one jury is not there, the others cannot sit. 1 out of 11 was absent. They couldn't sit. The judge had to send them home yesterday. So hopefully, like I said, nobody knows, it doesn't matter. She didn't need to tell us the nature of the sickness, but like I said, it's been baking hot, not just in London, but across Western Europe. So the weather probably could have affected that particular juror, but we know today whether that juror has recovered. If the juror is well, they will continue their deliberations. If one juror that made the sitting not to hold yesterday is still not well, then what happened yesterday, we're going to be back to where we were yesterday, or rather where we were on Friday. So that is it. But again, as I said, this trial has been a long one. When it started, West Ham was still in the Premiership. When this trial started in late January, West Ham were in the Premiership, Wolves were in the Premiership, and then Arsenal was still chasing the dream. But to tell you how long this trial is from January 26th to now, West Ham is no more in the Premiership, as many of you know. Apologies for Hamas supporters, and also Wolves they are no longer in the Premiership. So that tells you one football season has almost gone. When this trial started, again, like I mentioned yesterday, because it's all about context. When he was finishing his submission about 2 weeks ago, Olatimbo's barrister kept making reference to context to dismantle the evidence of the Crown against his client. He said, context. You can't just be showing Harrod shopping to say that is bribery. No. So it's context. So just putting this trial also in context. When this trial started, for tennis season, we were in hard court season at the Australia Open. But now it's clay season. We are in France. The tennis season has moved from the hard court to the clay court. This trial is in, but hopefully, this week the jury will come, will reach a verdict. Nobody knows. It may be today, probably before the end of today, but nobody knows. And as I mentioned yesterday, when they brought that jury note on Thursday about count one, asking clarification from the judge about count number one. Remember, there are 8 counts covering the 3 of them, covering Diezani, her brother, and Olatimbo, and there's so 8 counts in all to consider. So nobody knows whether they had walked from 8 back to 1, or they were just still stuck on count number 1. So nobody had any clue when they brought that jury note on Thursday. But one thing is sure is that the jury, anytime they reach a verdict, it just happens like the twinkle of an eye. Just to tell you in advance how it works, let's say they reach a verdict tomorrow. The announcement will go over the court public address system that the jurors, that all the parties in courtroom number 2 are listening to come to court number 2, and within few minutes we're going to know that the jurors, they have reached a verdict. That is the chronology. That is how it's going to play out. If they reach a verdict at any time, because I won't have that time to tell you in advance, but if they reach a verdict, they will put a note through the jury bailiff. The jury bailiff will pass the note. That note will get to the judge, and then the courtroom clerk number 2 will make the announcement that all the parties in court number 2 to come, and we have a verdict. And then when they come to the court, the jurors will line in. They will take their positions, and then the court clerk will then ask them that what have they done, and then they will say we have reached a verdict. And then the court clerk will then ask them, have you reached a verdict on all the count, the jury foreman or forewoman will be on his or her feet and to then say yes. After the foreman has said yes, the defendant, then the defendant will be asked to stand up in the dock. And then when they stand up, and then the clerk is going to ask them for the jury foreman for count number one. How do you find the particular defendant or defendant? Then they're going to say guilty or not guilty. The same thing we go to count number two. The jury foreman or forewoman still standing, the defendant also still standing in the dock. Then we ask one after the other until count number 8. So that is how it plays out in a jury trial. So for now, that tenseness is still there because everybody is just hanging, the defense counsels, the crown prosecutor, the court admin staff in court number 2. Everybody is just waiting, and very agonizing yesterday that because of one juror, the remaining 10 jurors could not sit. But that is the law. That is the law that governs the jury trial, and that is why there is a backlog of cases. There is a backlog of cases in this country, and that is why also there is a call for reform of the jury trial. Because just imagine again, in a normal, any society or any club, when there is 10 out of 11, that is more than a quorum. That will be the meeting we go on or the event we go on. But for a jury trial, one person is not there, not everybody has to go home. And that is exactly what the judge did yesterday. Juror was unwell. She told them, and she said, I'm so sorry, folks, we can't do anything today. I'm going to send you home. And then off you go. Everybody, you imagine everybody will say, oh, if you had known, you wouldn't have come, because rushing out of your house, being here for 10, 15, within 5 minutes, you are out, heading back home. You've already planned to be in court for the whole day. And then, you know how it is when you've come to the office. Imagine your office just being told, sorry, the boss is not around or you cannot work. So, but hopefully that juror who was not well yesterday will have recovered, and then the jurors will continue their deliberation. So I'll give you update at the end of the day or tomorrow. Of course, if anything happens, definitely that is a no-brainer. There won't be any waiting till tomorrow. But if the juror is still unwell, then there will be no sitting. There were discussions which I'm not allowed to say now. Before the jurors were calling, the lawyers and the judge were talking. Of course, due to legal restrictions, I cannot say that now. And also, so there are discussions going on, but those cannot be made public now until after this trial, or except the judge makes reference to it, except something happens in court today and the judge makes reference of it. Otherwise, anything said in the absence of the jurors, we are not allowed to say to the public until after the trial. So that is how it is for now. I'll see you guys later. Enjoy the rest of your day.